The abandoned mansion had always been a source of intrigue for the local teenagers. The dilapidated structure stood tall in the middle of a dense forest, surrounded by overgrown shrubs and weeds that had taken over the once manicured gardens. The mansion had been abandoned for decades, and rumors had circulated among the townsfolk that it was haunted by the ghost of a witch who was burned at the stake. Despite the warnings from their parents and the local authorities, a group of teenagers decided to explore the abandoned mansion one moonless night. They had heard stories of the witch's cursed possessions hidden within the mansion's walls, and they were determined to find them. The group consisted of 5 friends: Rachel, Jake, Maya, Alex, and Tyler. They had been friends since childhood and had always been fascinated by the supernatural. They parked their cars at the edge of the forest and made their way towards the mansion on foot, using flashlights to light their way. As they entered the mansion, they were hit by a wave of musty air. The mansion's interior was dark, with cobwebs covering the walls and dust coating every surface. The once grand chandelier hung from the ceiling, its crystals long gone, leaving only the rusted frame. Rachel led the group, determined to find the witch's cursed possessions. They searched every room, but all they found were old furniture and dust-covered portraits of the mansion's former owners. As they made their way to the upper floors, the atmosphere grew heavier, and the air grew colder. The group felt a sense of foreboding, and they knew that they were not alone in the mansion. They could hear footsteps echoing through the halls, and whispers seemed to follow them wherever they went. Rachel, Jake, Maya, Alex, and Tyler split up, searching for any signs of the witch's cursed possessions. As they searched, they stumbled upon a room that was locked from the outside. It was as if someone had been trapped inside. Rachel approached the door, and as she reached for the handle, a cold breeze blew past her, causing her to shiver. She tried the handle, and to her surprise, the door creaked open. The room was pitch black, and the group could barely see their hands in front of their faces. Rachel pulled out her flashlight and shone it around the room. The beam of light revealed a dusty old bed, an old dresser, and a bookshelf filled with dusty books. As they approached the bookshelf, they noticed that one of the books had been pulled out slightly, revealing a hidden passage behind it. Rachel pushed the book aside, and they made their way down the narrow passageway. As they walked, the atmosphere grew more oppressive, and the air grew colder. They could hear whispers and chanting growing louder as they approached a dimly lit chamber. When they reached the chamber, they found the witch standing in the center of the room, surrounded by candles. The witch was old and haggard, with long gray hair and a crooked nose. She wore a tattered black robe, and her eyes glowed red in the flickering candlelight. The group froze in terror as the witch cackled, revealing yellowed teeth. "Welcome, my children," the witch said. "I have been waiting for you." The group tried to back away, but they found that they were rooted to the spot. The witch approached them, and as she did, the candles flickered, and the room grew darker. "I have been waiting for new victims to torture with my dark magic," the witch continued. The group tried to run, but they found that they were unable to move. The witch began to chant, and the room was filled with an eerie mist that made it difficult to see. The group felt a sense of dread wash over them, as if they were caught in a nightmare that they couldn't wake up from. The witch raised her hands, and as she did, the mist grew thicker, obscuring the group's vision. They heard a sound that sent chills down their spines, the sound of chains dragging on the ground. Suddenly, the mist cleared, and the group found themselves standing in a dark, damp dungeon. They could hear the sound of water dripping from the ceiling, and they could feel the chill of the damp walls against their skin. The dungeon was dimly lit by torches, and they could see shadows moving in the corners of their vision. The group looked around, trying to find a way out, but the walls seemed to be closing in on them. They could feel the presence of something evil in the room, and they knew that they were not alone. Suddenly, they heard a scream coming from one of the cells. They approached the cell, and as they peered inside, they saw a figure huddled in the corner. It was a young girl, no older than 13, with matted hair and torn clothes. The girl looked up at them, her eyes filled with fear. "Please help me," she begged. "She's been torturing me for weeks." The group knew that they had to find a way to free the girl, but they also knew that they were facing a powerful witch who had been alive for centuries. They searched the dungeon for a way out, but all they found were locked doors and dead ends. As they searched, they could feel the witch's presence growing stronger. They could hear her laughter echoing through the halls, and they knew that they were running out of time. Finally, they found a hidden passage that led them to a staircase. They climbed the stairs, and as they reached the top, they saw the witch standing at the end of the hallway. She was surrounded by an army of undead creatures, and her eyes glowed red with anger. "You will not escape me," the witch hissed. "I have been waiting for new victims for centuries, and you will not get away." The group knew that they were outnumbered, but they also knew that they couldn't give up. They drew their weapons, a silver knife, a wooden stake, and a silver cross, and prepared to face the witch. The battle was fierce, and the group fought with all their might. They battled the undead creatures, and they dodged the witch's spells. But just when they thought they had won, the witch revealed her true power. She raised her hands, and as she did, the walls began to shake. The floor beneath their feet crumbled, and the group fell into a dark, cavernous pit. They landed on a pile of bones, and as they looked up, they saw the witch standing at the edge of the pit, her eyes glowing with triumph. "You will be trapped here forever," she cackled. "You will be my playthings for eternity." The group knew that they had to find a way out, but the pit was too deep and the walls were too slick. They searched for hours, but all they found were more bones and darkness. As they sat in the darkness, waiting for their fate, they heard a sound that made their hearts leap. The sound of a rope being lowered into the pit. They looked up and saw a figure at the top of the pit, pulling the rope. They grabbed onto the rope and began to climb. It was a difficult climb, but they were determined to escape. As they reached the top, they saw that it was the young girl from the dungeon who had come to their rescue. "Come with me," she said. "I know a way out." The group followed the girl as she led them through a series of tunnels and passageways. They could hear the witch's laughter echoing through the halls, but they were determined to escape. Finally, They reached the surface, and they saw the light of the moon shining through the trees. They ran towards their cars, not stopping until they were miles away from the mansion. They never spoke of their experience again, but they knew that they had narrowly escaped the clutches of the witch. They had seen things that they could never explain, and they knew that they had been forever changed by their encounter with the supernatural. Years later, the mansion was torn down, and the land was turned into a park. But the teenagers who had explored the mansion that night would never forget the horror they had experienced. They knew that the witch was still out there waiting for her next victims to torture with her dark magic, and they knew that they would never be the same again. If you like my story, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like the video for more and similar stories.